Good morning, everyone. It is so wonderful to see such a large crowd here today on my first Veterans Breakfast. I just want to tell everybody John Payne says hello. He is sorry he couldn't make it this morning, but we felt that this was a tradition that we wanted to keep. I got to tell you, when I was on the campaign trail last year, the question asked to me the most was, are you going to continue the Veterans Breakfast? So I had to say absolutely, 100% yes. That was not determined on what you asked me. It was determined because I feel this is an extremely important thing to do. We need to honor our veterans. We need to honor those who served and serve today. And I can't say how proud I am of all of you and what you've done for us, our country, our state, and our communities to be able to do this today, and the freedoms that we have and the liberties that we have today. So thank you so much, and I just want to give you a round of applause for all you've done and everything you continue to do for us and our country. Thank you. So a lot of times I get to meet with you. I get to meet with a lot of special people, a lot of military people that served in the military, people that have had the opportunity to have those who served in the military. I hear a lot of the stories. I love to spend time. Stan and Maria had the opportunity to spend their 70th wedding anniversary here was in, I think, July. Is that correct? Congratulations on your 70th wedding anniversary. But Stan, Marine Corps, correct, Stan? We had a lot of talks and conversations, and it was really nice. And it's always wonderful to get to people's homes and sit down and talk, and not talk about politics and not talk about what goes on and what's going on out there, but just to talk about the old times, talk about, what's important to you, what's important to all of us out there. So thank you for your time, and thank you for allowing me to come to your home and talk to you. And if I haven't gotten there, please, I'll absolutely, if you invite me, I'm there. I have one thing. Mike Chansey, happy birthday today. Okay. And we have a special guest today. He just came home from Kuwait, and Richard Fanning. Richard, if you could please stand. Thank you for your service. But I got to say, this doesn't happen, as I said earlier, without what you've done in your service to this country. And I can't thank you enough. From the bottom of my heart, my wife is joining us today from her heart. I can't say thank you enough. So, you guys are all heroes through and through. And I have to say, when we sit down and we did this Veterans Breakfast, and I retained John's staff, Jody and Terry, and I got to tell you this. They're the ones that make this possible. They work so hard. They tell me this is their favorite event. This is the thing they love the most. And I got to tell you, it truly is great to see this huge turnout here. I know John had it years ago in the past over at the Spring Garden Drive. And when they closed up, we had to make some revisions. So I hope everybody's okay with where we're at. And the Firehouse has been so generous in their time and efforts in helping us set this up. So I want to thank them for all they do and everything that goes on. So a couple things I'd like to say and quote here. Some words that I found and my staff helped me find. Governor McCall, he said, heroes are not giant statues framed against the red sky. They are people who say, this is my community and it's my responsibility to make it better. And I don't think anybody takes that lightly, and I think that's a great saying, and I really thought that was something that should be mentioned today. As veterans, you guys have made this a better place. You guys have made this, and ladies have made this a better place for us to live. I know it's not your responsibility. I know it was something that you guys all did out of your hearts and spent a lot of time doing, and I can't say you thanks enough. But when I was out on the trail, I got to call this young man up because he's a good friend of mine, and this is important to me, and this is something that we're going to press through and help. And it has to do with you, and we need some mentors, and that's the Veterans Court. And we all know people coming home from service don't always come back, and things are tough, and it's hard for them to find their way. And sometimes they get into trouble. But we have something here in Dauphin County that I think we should all be proud of, and that's Veterans Court. And we need mentors. So when Randy and I were up out at Indiantown Gap, we got to talk about this, and we were putting the flags up out at the cemetery. And he started talking to me about this, and he said, "Tom, I'd like to come see." And I said, "Absolutely." So we put it out there on the website. We did a couple things, I think, on Facebook too, and we try to get this out. I plan on coming to Veterans Court and meeting and working with him in the future. But it really hit home because, you know, when people get in trouble, there's not always second chances, and I think everybody deserves a second chance, and especially our veterans who are out there serving our country need to be recognized a little differently. So Randy, if you could just come up for a second, just give me a couple words and just explain exactly, and maybe we can get a couple of these young men to help us out as mentors in the future. Go ahead. Absolutely. Yeah, sure.
Hello, everyone. My name is Randy Saunders. I've served a little bit about myself. I served in the U.S. Army from 1972 to 1975. Throughout my life, I struggled with extreme difficulties. I became an alcoholic. I'm no longer an alcoholic. I'm a recovering alcoholic. Anyway, we have a great program in Pennsylvania, which started here in Dauphin County. It's actually started, first one in Lackawanna County in 2009. We now have it in Dauphin County, which started January of 2012. Throughout my life, I was involved in different instances through the judicial system. I broke a lot of laws, got in a lot of trouble, and today I'm thankful that there is a Dauphin County Veterans Court. They help treat people, they help treat our veterans that suffer from PTSD, alcohol addiction, drug addiction, other types of addiction. This program saved my life. I would not be here today. As a result of that, I did participate in a veterans program back in December of 2013. We're in desperate need of veteran mentors. We have a lot of people just like myself that are going through the judicial system. I think we have over 27,000 vets right now that are incarcerated due to self-medication or some other problem that they had caused throughout their life. I had graduated from Veterans Court program finally after 2 years. I then became a certified peer support specialist, which I don't know if anyone knows what that is, but I help other people with the same problems that I suffer deal with life on life's terms. I became a mentor in this program even before I graduated because I realized it's a wonderful program. Mentors are very, very important in the judicial system, in the Veterans Court program, because we can help guide our vets back into recovery mode mentally, physically. It gives them pride again, as we once had when we were in uniform. Again, thank you, Tom. Appreciate the time to be able to speak to these people. Have a great day, and thank you for your service. Thanks, man. I really appreciate that.
Randy, thank you so much for what you do and your passion for the veterans. So, if we could all rise, we'd like to do the Pledge of Allegiance, if able. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. But what I'd like to get into is our keynote speaker today, and I think, I of course just mentioned him, but a wonderful individual, Major Anthony Tony Corelli, the Adjutant General of Pennsylvania. I've been around Tony a couple times here with a couple of these events, and he truly is a wonderful person. Tony, if you'd like to come up and make some remarks, that would be wonderful. Thank you, Tony.
Good morning, everyone. How's everybody today? Good. All right. Great pleasure for me to be here. Thank you so much to Representative Mehaffie, his wife Linda, the staff, everyone that helped put this together, Team Mehaffie. We love recognizing our veterans, and I can't think of a better place to be in the week of Veterans Day is to be then a veterans event in a hall filled by our nation's heroes, and that's really what you all are, is part of our nation's heroes. This country started some 240 some odd years ago, about 90 miles east of here in Philadelphia, with a Declaration of Independence. But those were words on a paper, and those were, we cherish what that piece of paper says. We look at the people who first signed it as our founding fathers. But you got to recognize it for what it is. It really is, when it comes down to it, it's a piece of paper. And it was some ideas, some grand ideas from our nation's founding. But just signing that piece of paper did not make it so. That did not make the United States of America, okay? Because it took a war of independence to get that done. And who did that? Well, it was this nation's first generation of veterans, okay? Created this country. And generation after generation of Americans have answered that call in their time and in their own way throughout our history to keep that independence and preserve the freedoms and liberties that we have today. And that's what we're here to honor you all for, is for doing that. And that is a small and very select team. So we were able to fill the hall here, and you're like, look around and you see all the Navy hats and the Army and the Marine T-shirts, the World War II vets, the Vietnam vets, everybody proud of their service and proud of their era, as they should be. And we're able to fill this room, and you're like, yeah, there's veterans everywhere. But to put that in perspective, it is very a small number when you compare to the population of the United States. If you look currently at the people that are wearing a uniform today, 0.5% of our nation is wearing a uniform today. Another statistic I like to throw out there, if you start from the Revolutionary War, and we have some older veterans here, but we don't have anybody that goes that far back. It was about 170-some thousand people totally involved in the Revolutionary War. And then you go to the War of 1812 and the Mexican War, and you can go right on through. World War II, which we don't, World War I was, about 5 million people participated in World War I. In World War II, 16 million. In Korea, about 6 million. And then Vietnam, as I'll talk more about in a minute, was 9 million. And you can just keep adding those up through our nation's history, nearly 250 years of military history. If we could line up every one of those service members today in this room, there'd be 43 million veterans that carried the load of all of this nation's wars from its inception till now. 43 million. Okay, in a country of 320-some million now. So if we were to line up every single person that served this country in the last 250 years in all of those conflicts, it still would only make up 13% of today's population. Okay, and that's an absolutely incredible number to me, that so much was done, so much of the load was carried, and so much was sacrificed by so few people. And it's just an amazing number. So we all owe a huge gratitude to every single one of our veterans who have, in their time, put on whichever color uniform that you chose to put on. Normally, we're dominated by the Army crowd. I was surprised. Actually, the Navy crowd here is very heavy Navy crowd for this area, and actually a number of Air Forces as well. Usually, we're way outnumbered. So it's good to see the mix. I know we all carry on those service rivalries. We're a month out from the Army-Navy game, of course, very, very contentious. But I am here to remind you that tomorrow is the Air Force-Army game. So go Air Force, beat Army, all right? Got to say it. I will, however, concede about a month ago that the Navy did beat us. It was an exciting game. It's 48-45. But the Navy's got a great team as well. But that service rivalry still exists. It's very healthy, and it's amazing the way that vets love to tease other vets about their service. But when it comes down to it, we're still all on the same team, and like I said, it's a very exclusive team because of the numbers that we have. Obviously, we're doing a Vietnam pinning ceremony here as well today. I'd like to ask just all the Vietnam era veterans, please stand. Okay, look at those numbers. That's awesome. All right. There was 9 million Vietnam members that served, 9.1 million Vietnam vets, which is a phenomenal number, okay? I compare it to World War II. If you look at World War II, which was global conflict, it was the absolute biggest, most global war in the history of the world. If we run it from 39 to 45, there's that 6-year period that it affected almost every corner on every continent on the globe. And it was amazing how much the sea battles in all of the world's oceans, many of the seas, the campaigns in Europe, the campaigns in Africa, the campaigns out in the Pacific, all of the islands, it was a global conflict. It was everywhere. And there was so much going on that time, and it's no wonder there were 16 million people involved in World War II. In comparison to Vietnam, okay, yes, it stretched over a longer period of time, but if you look at a globe, it's so small. If you look at that area, and if you just take Vietnam, you take the Gulf on either side, and even if you add Laos and Cambodia and some of the other smaller areas that had some other conflicts that tied to the war, it is such a small area. Our Vietnam vets are, as a nation and as of a commonwealth, our largest segment of veterans. So, when I asked you to stand, it was not a surprise to see that many, because of the 820,000 veterans in Pennsylvania, almost 300,000 of them are from Vietnam. So it is our largest veterans segment that's been working its way through our system. Of course, we still have World War II vets, about 40,000 left, but compared to the 300,000 Vietnam vets that we have left in the country. We do these commemorations now because, frankly, the country got it wrong before. I mean, if you look at how people were regarded during World War II and all the other conflicts, if you look at those people that fellow served with me in Desert Storm and some of the other desert conflicts that we've had. I know we had a gentleman from the 193rd that just got back from a deployment. We just did a deployment return just a couple of weeks ago, and the families come out, and some of the veterans groups come out, and the USO and a bunch of other organizations come out when our people return. Okay, and our Vietnam vets did not have that. And when Randy spoke earlier about a lot of the addiction and some of the other problems and things, PTSD and things like that, we didn't have programs for that during Vietnam. So I look at the Vietnam vet crowd. We're going to do the commemoration pins here as well today. We owe that era of veterans so much. It is absolutely amazing. Because first we owe them for their service. Like every other generation of veterans that served in whatever conflict that they served in, they all earned that respect through their service and sacrifice. So we owe them for that service. But our Vietnam vets in particular, in the way they were treated when they returned, in the way, because it would have been very easy for them to just remain as a society just closed off and saying, well, that was terrible. I hate the way I was treated, and I'm going to close down, and I don't care about veterans. I don't care about other veterans. I don't care about our military because of the way I was treated. But our Vietnam vets did not do that. And as a whole, those Vietnam vets today, the number that stood up today, if you look across the country, they're our leaders in our communities today. There's so many of them that are involved in community service, in community projects. They're the owners of businesses. They're holding local, county, state level, and even federal level office. And what they did was essentially ensure that future generations of veterans would never be treated that way. As long as we've been doing this, don't know a time like you know. And we stand on your shoulders. You did your time during your generation. Now it's time for us to pick up the ball. I'm closer to the end. The sergeant major and I, we're at the tail end of our career. We're going to be handing that mantle off. And I got to tell you, the younger generations that we have today, they're the smartest, most motivated, most committed young service members today. And a lot of that is attributed to you, and because of the way that you have shaped that opinion of this community. The community that surrounds today's military is so supportive, is so great, and it makes our job so much easier because they are motivated to serve. They respect the flag, they respect the uniform, but they're a product of these communities, and you all make up that community. So I thank you again for your service, but I thank you so much more for making this community the way it is. Thank you so much for coming out and gathering here today. There's so much history in this room. So please share your stories. What we need for future generations is to know what generations before us got to do. And I know a lot of veterans don't like to brag about it, but we really do need to hear that, because each generation has done their time and you shape what future generations of American service members will do. So thank you again for your service, and thanks for coming out. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. When we looked at what we wanted to do this year and make this a special day, and I got to say this is a tribute to all of you, no matter where you served and how you served, but we just thought it would be something special after 4 decades to recognize the Vietnam veterans, as the general said. So we have Chip Gillian with us today. He's also with the general at the PA Department of Military and Veteran Affairs, and he has those pins. So if my wife, Linda, could come up, she's going to read all the Vietnam veterans' names. That is not how we're going to pin you. If it's okay with you, we're going to start on this side. If you are a Vietnam veteran, rise if you could, not right away, as we go down through. And then what we'll do, if you can't, that's okay, just raise your hand, and then we'll have the general and myself and Chip give you a pin.
I have the honor to announce our Vietnam veterans. Ronald Anderson, Dennis Axman, Dennis Bechtel, Russell Bechtel, Louis Brash, Harold Brandt, Walter Brenninger, Charles Brill, Donald Brink, Larry Brown, James Campbell, Jim Carnes, Mike Cheney, Kenneth Chubb, David Klauser, Lawrence Davidson, Michael Diffendahl, Anthony Divitor, John Dodge, Dan Dorsheimer, Adley Eisen, Ken Fost, Bruce Ferry, Robert Federoff, David Fox, J.J. Frank, Robert Freeland, Greg Gaffney, Ronald Geist, Dan Gilbert, Ronald Goodman, Peter Graybash, John Graybill, John Grubik, Chuck Harbold, Bob Hauser, Galen Hitz, Robert Hucker, Joe Hoover, Ronald Hoover, Wally Hoover, Anthony Horney, Hank Hymans, Bill Jackson, Alan Jacobs, Edward Jenkins, George Judy, Michael Calball, Robert Kane, Joseph Ketterer, Norman Kirsch, Robert Klinger, Alan Naki, Alan Krebs, James Crow, Kenton Kreider, Chancey Knopp, Joseph Labarashrukas. That's a hard one. Sorry. Carl Lehman, Larry Lenovich, Wayne Leonard, Gary Lewis, Rick Lockey, Edward Loren, James Luring, William Lux, Alan Malkoff, Jean Manfred, Jim Manfred, Robert Messersmith, Susan Messersmith, Norman Miller, Richard Myers, John Nagy, Michael O'Donovan, William Orner, Thomas Oxenford, Robert Pengaro, Wanda Page, Ray Parasinski, Edward Peterson, Tom Petrisco, William Farmer, Robert Podacek, Gary Hodiger, Arthur Pro, George Rains, Richard Reisinger, David Rhine, Ronald Richards, Charles Rippin, John Rita, John Robbins, Larry Robbins, John Rowland, Donald Ruth, Louis Samsel, Renee Sanchez, Randy Souders, Charles Scholl Jr., James Schreffler, Lee Schaefer, Glenn Schaefer, Tilden Sides, Dale Sinninger Jr., Barry Sipple, Edward Smearick, Michael Smearick, David Smith, Bernard Sabata, Richard Spittler, Kirk Svanagel, Jack Still, Paul Stokes, Craig Stout, Benjamin Swieger, William Taxweiler, Ronald Tomasetti, Chuck Tren, Gary Trowbridge, William Uffelman, Gwen Underwood, William Vaughn, James Walmer, John Walters, Robert Wieland, Edwin Weiss, James Weldon, Louis Whittle, Glenn Williams, Richard Williams, Gary Wolf, John Wood, Lester Zimmerman, and Donald Zinn. Thank you.